Greetings, fellow pastoral care students. This semester, I chose to look at the topic of pastoral self-care strategies that are being implemented widely in those who are experiencing thriving ministries. Something that I quickly realized was that looking at self-care strategies from any ministry would be necessary in order to find a restorative model for this widely experienced problem. My paper sought to address the void in self-care strategies for the vast majority of ministerial leaders. My thesis states that a significant number of pastors spend so much of their time caring for the members of their church that they become inefficient to care for themselves. This was something that I found to be a repeating idea in the research that I found. My paper strives to employ Gherkin's quadrilateral model. There are elements of tradition care present in my paper, as well as Christian community care. From a wider lens, I sought to employ the cultural context model in my paper as well. The research that I found was from several cultures and countries and even continents, as well as research that was conducted across religions, denominations, movements, or faiths. One thing that remained consistent were the results of each one of these studies or areas of research. All of the research indicated that there was a void of self-care strategies being employed by ministers or member of clergy across all of these cultures, continents, denominations, faith-based organizations. It became clear from the studies that I was finding that clergy members failed to provide self-care. There were a number of main indicators for this. As my thesis argues, members of clergy become so busy with caring for the members of their church or organization that they are left depleted at the end of the day and are therefore ineffective in taking the time to provide self-care for themselves. There were no models for resolution that I found. This was the most surprising area that I came across. Each study sought to prove that there was a void in strategies being actively used by individuals, whether they were in what they self-admitted were thriving ministries, or also ministries that were experiencing burnout. There were no models of resolution. There were no ideas for improvement, suggestions to be made. The journals, the articles, the books that I found simply indicated that there was a problem. This seems to be a widely known fact in many denominations and cultures, yet this seems to be an area that is left unchanged for the most part. I did find that there were organizations, faith-based denominations, movements that did offer short training modules or annual gatherings with the opportunity for fellowship among clergy members. However, in several of the studies, that it was revealed by participants that they chose not to interact or partake of those opportunities simply because it required them to become too vulnerable to that same population. Depression, burnout, low self-esteem, these were all areas that almost every study reported finding among the clergy that participated in the study, that the leaders of our churches are experiencing these areas, or that they are experiencing depression, low self-esteem, burnout, because they lack the time and strategy to provide self-care. For me, creates the opportunity to implement a self-care model. Pitfalls for my paper. I struggled to find a turning point in my paper because there was a general lack of resolution for this problem in much of what I was finding. I realized that it would be that I would need to create my own self-care model. I know that I wasn't completely successful in presenting a way to bridge the problem to the solution, and this is something that I know I need to create as a part of the conclusion of my paper. I know that there is a larger missiological response, but I'm having a hard time giving that response a voice in my paper for right now. Because of the specific population that my paper seeks to address, individuals who are in a position of leadership or who are clergy members, it's been difficult to conclude how the church body as a whole can be proactive in combating the lack of self-care experienced by those same leaders. As a way to give this specific topic a distinct apostolic Pentecostal tone, I desire to implement areas that can be seen as distinctly apostolic Pentecostal. I did draw attention to general resources that UPCI ministers have at the larger national level and also at their individual district level, as well as through the Ministry Central and Launch Your Ministry that's available online. But I desire to give my conclusion a latter apostolic Pentecostal voice. There are ample scriptural examples that model the necessary steps for self-care, from the day that God took to rest, to the Jewish tradition of Sabbath, to the many times that Jesus is recorded as leaving the masses to go and rest either by himself or as part of a smaller group. It is in these last two examples that I desire to create my own self-care model. Additionally, as I develop a self-care model, I feel like I will be able to better implement my pastoral theology, and I think that these two will work together to draw clear lines to ways to address the problem rather than just state that there is a founding problem in this area of ministry. Because the call to be a pastor is not one that is taken lightly. There is a great need to address the individual self-care that each of these people are lacking. As part of this, I desire to give it an apostolic Pentecostal tone and look forward very much to your response.